All right, guys, welcome back again to my channel. My name is Oluwaseun here. Now, today we want to take a look at, this new item section that we have here. And today also we are going to understand the basic, syntax of the Jenkins pipeline. Now, we understand already that Jenkins is a CI/CD platform that helps us to, deploy our application in an automated fashion, okay, from the repository to, our environment, whether development, staging, or production environment. Now, something is responsible, all right, for that. And Jenkins uses what you call a Jenkins file, which means inside of this file, you have to define what you want Jenkins to do exactly. Okay, now you define how Jenkins should pull the code, where Jenkins should pull the code from, whether it is from GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket. And then what you want Jenkins to do with that code, you also have to define that in the pipeline. Okay, so if Jenkins should fetch the code from the pipeline, do you want Jenkins to carry out an analysis on the code, maybe some security testing with SonarQube, or you want Jenkins to build a Docker image if there's a Docker file in that repository? And then do you want Jenkins to deploy the Docker image that is built, all right, within the pipeline? Do you want Jenkins to deploy that to your Docker Hub registry or ECR? And then do you want Jenkins to connect to your EC2 instance or to your ECR or to your ECS to basically deploy your container, all right, in such environment? So this Jenkins file is where we have to define all of these stages. And the Jenkins file is written in the Groovy language, which is similar, all right, to your Java language or JavaScript. All right, so we're going to take a look at that. But before then, let's click on the new item. Now, under the new item section, you have the freestyle, you have the pipeline, you have the multi-configuration, you have folder, you have multi-branch, and then you have organization. Now, in my own experience, okay, the most use of all of these items is the pipeline and the multi-branch pipeline. All right. And of course, in the course of this series, we're going to be focusing on the pipeline specifically. All right. We're going to be focusing on that. But let me just, give us an understanding of what all of these items basically means. The freestyle basically means you want to run a freestyle job. All right. So if you click on the freestyle, you have to give it a name. All right, so the freestyle project is, so let's just call this freestyle, right? So if you click on the freestyle and you click on OK, now it takes you to a page where you can configure many things. You can put your description. You can, there are options here. You can even link it up with the source code management. There are build triggers, basically what can trigger this particular job and all of that. So those are the build triggers, the environment. Do you want to delete a workspace? Do you want to terminate something? There's what you call the build step. So the build step is where you basically execute certain commands. So maybe you want to execute a shell command or you want to run a script and all of that. You do that on the build step. And then you have the post-build actions. All right. So the post-build actions can be things like maybe you want to archive an artifact. All right. Maybe you want to publish a test result. Maybe you want to send an email notification. All right. Maybe to an email address or to your Slack channel. Those are post-build, all right, actions, which means whether the build fails or the build succeeds, this post-build action should actually be carried out, all right, at the end of the day. Okay, so that is the freestyle job. So the freestyle job is just maybe for testing and, for just basic things, okay? And of course, you really don't use that in a production environment, okay? Now, let's go back to dashboard. Okay, and I'm just going to leave here and let's click on manage Jenkins again and let's take a look. Sorry, let's click on new item and let's click on pipeline. So I'm going to call this pipeline, all right, first pipeline, all right, and then I'm going to say okay. Now, when you're building a pipeline, you can think about it like this. When you say something is a pipeline, now within a pipeline, there are different stages, right? So there are different stages, okay? And that is exactly what we want to do. Now here, you can give your pipeline a description, which is actually optional. It's not necessary that you put a description, but it's optional. But of course, in a work environment, production environment, you want to describe exactly what the pipeline is doing, all right? So for example, I can say this is my dev all right, pipeline. So I can say this is my dev pipeline. Now, right here, I can check all of this option, but I'm going to just, save you the, all of these stuff. And then we're going to get into the build triggers later on, where we talk about this particular one, GitHub hook trigger for Git SCM polling, which basically is that when you push into your GitHub repository, your Jenkins pipeline can be triggered automatically. Okay. There are different ways to build, to configure trigger. All right, for Jenkins, right? There's the pull SCM, which means maybe that one follows some kind of, cron schedule that after certain minutes or certain hours, Jenkins should pull, all right, the repository that have been connected to it. And then if any changes were to, have happened in that repository, then the pipeline, all right, will be triggered automatically. Okay. So we're going to get into all of that. Now, here is the pipeline script. So this is where you post your pipeline script that tells Jenkins exactly what is expected. Okay, so you take your pipeline script and you put it here, and then Jenkins will look at the pipeline script and will execute everything that you have defined in that pipeline script. So let's take a look at what the pipeline script looks like exactly. So here you have the name of the pipeline script is usually Jenkinsfile. That is usually the name. Okay. Now here you define the pipeline script by starting with the word pipeline. That is, the starting point. So pipeline. Then the agent in our own case here is any. Now the agent can be a node, which means another EC2 instance where you want to build your job. The agent can also be a Docker, container, which means you can also use Docker executor like you would use in GitLab CICD. You can also specify that right here. But like we have learned already, that Jenkins depends on a lot of plugins, right? That means if you want to use Docker as the agent that will build your job, then you must have a plugin that supports that. Okay? So you must have a plugin that supports that. So we've not gone into installing plugins yet, but of course we're going to get there. Okay? Now, after you specify the agent, another thing that you can specify apart from the agent at this particular stage is you can also specify things like environment variable. All right. If you want some global environment variable, you can define them after the agent as well. Now, after you have defined all of that, now another thing you can also define as part of the agent, as part of the environment variable, is that you can define the tools that you want to use within your pipeline. For example, if you're building a Java application, that Java application is obviously going to need JDK installed on the node that is, doing the build. So if the build or the job is happening on the Jenkins agent itself, then you must specify the full path in the tool section that I showed us in the last video. And then you put the full path to your JDK there. And then in the pipeline, you basically have to also mention that the name of the, Java, all right? You have to mention that in your pipeline. Now, if you're also building that Java application with Maven, you also have to mention that in the pipeline as well. Is that okay? So we're going to get to all of that, but I'm just trying to let you know the things that are likely to be available in your pipeline. Now, here you also have stages. Now, if you look at what you have here, you have the stages. So stages here will basically mean that these are the things that I want to execute in this particular order. All right. So that is what stages is. So if you look at it here, you have stages, and then after the stages, you now have stage, right? So if you look at all the 3 or 4 stage that we have here, right, they are basically under that one stage. So stages, and then you have stage. So this stage will be to check out. So which means this particular stage is to pull my source code from the Git repository and make it available within the Jenkins workspace that this pipeline is running inside of. Okay. And then you have the build stage, you have the test stage, you have the deploy stage, all right, and then you have the post-build stage. If you look at the post-build stage, it is basically on the same line with the stages, okay? But the idea here is that you have the stage, and this particular name you have here is the name of the stage. Okay, that's the name of the stage. And then here you have the steps, right? So the steps basically means what are the things that you would like to execute in this particular stage. So it can be the commands you want to execute. It can be anything you want to execute. For example, now this is Git branch. So this is checking out, all right, basically cloning, all right, what I have in that repository and making it available in the pipelines workspace. Okay, and then the build phase can be like maybe Docker build or something like that, or maybe you can have NVM install, all right, or NVM package. Okay, that can be the build phase. The test phase can be you want to run NVM test, or you want to run some check style analysis, or you even want to do some SonarQube scanning. That can be the test stage, and then you define all the commands that you want to do, that you want to run in that particular stage. The deploy stage can be you want to push something to your ECR repository or to Docker Hub, or you even want to deploy to an EC2 instance, right? The post phase will be that maybe you want to configure some kind of notification and Slack that, anytime I push into this repository, anytime this particular pipeline has completed, whether the first stage fails or passed or whatever happens, this post stage should be executed every time. So you configure the post phase as well. Is that okay? So that is what the post phase is about. So if you look at the pipeline script very well, you will see that there's a lot of curly braces, right? So it means you have to do a lot of open and close curly brace, right? And that means it's actually a sensitive, all right, pipeline script. And of course, indentation is important here. It's strict on indentation. You can't just put your stages or stage anyway. So this is the structure of the Jenkins pipeline. So this structure that you see here, we're going to improve on this structure in the next video by just simply deploying a simple thing, all right, to our EC2 instance, all right, and basically see, what that looks like. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this in the next video. All right, we're going to connect to an EC2 instance and then see how we can deploy from Jenkins to our EC2 instance, and then we'll take it a notch higher, even in other videos where we'll look at pushing to Docker Hub, pushing to ECS cluster, and things like that. So thank you so much. I hope you've been able to gain some valuable insight even from this video. All right, thank you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until I come your way next time, thank you and stay blessed.